Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take the raw material of history, of music, of biography, and we crystallize it.
Right, we do the heavy lifting, we rip through all the source materials you don't have to. We turn that information overload into pure insight.
And our subject today, well, she demands that level of scrutiny. We're talking about Anna Mae Bullock.
The woman who, of course, became Tina Turner. And she wasn't just the queen of rock and roll. That title almost feels too simple. She was this walking contradiction, a massive selling artist.
I mean, the numbers are staggering. Over 100 million records globally.
Exactly. But her personal story, that narrative of survival, it's so powerful that it's often the first thing people mention, sometimes even before her musical genius.
Okay, let's unpack that right away, because the accolades themselves, they tell a story of defiance, of just unmatched capability.
They really do.
When you look at her professional record, what's the first thing that just jumps out at you?
It's the cross-genre mastery. I mean, it is truly unique. Think about this incredible achievement for a moment. Tina Turner is the only female artist in history, ever, to win a Grammy Award in the pop, rock, and R&B categories.
All three.
All three. She didn't just, dabble in those genres. She absolutely conquered them, often at the same time. She was breaking down barriers that the music industry had, well, very strictly enforced back then.
Right.
That achievement alone just speaks volumes about her versatility, her ability to just transcend all those restrictive labels.
And that duality, it extends to her institutional recognition, too. I mean, she's not just the legend. She's one of only 2 artists ever to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
Twice. First with Ike Turner, and then later, triumphantly, as a solo artist.
It's like her life had this necessary traumatic prologue, and then this magnificent self-authored main event.
And the one thing connecting those two phases, the reason she endured, was her voice. When critics talk about her legacy, they always come back to how she combined, and this is a great quote, the emotional force of the great blues singers with a sheer wallpaper-peeling power.
Wow. Wallpaper-peeling power.
Yeah. It was just made for the age of amplification. It was raw, it was spiritual, and it was completely unstoppable. It carried the weight of her entire life in every single note.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, to trace that journey from the cotton fields of Tennessee all the way to the quiet, self-chosen peace of Switzerland.
And to understand the profound cost, but also the ultimate liberation of writing your own story.
So where does that foundational voice even come from? The sources take us all the way back to 1939, to a world that is just utterly removed from global superstardom.
Right, the rural, segregated South.
Yeah, Tennessee.
Anna Mae Bullock was born near Brownsville, Tennessee, November 26, 1939. But her childhood, the place she really grew up, was Nutbush.
The place she later made famous in song.
Exactly. And this wasn't some, quaint little southern town. This was a deeply agricultural, often really hard-scrabble environment in the 1940s.
The sources really highlight how physical her upbringing was. Her father, Floyd Richard Bullock, he was an overseer of sharecroppers at a place called Poindexter Farm.
And Anna Mae herself. She vividly remembered picking cotton with her family when she was just a little girl. That life, that immersion in hard agricultural labor, it was just woven into the fabric of her earliest existence.
It adds such a powerful layer of contrast to the future queen of rock and roll, doesn't it?
It really does. And that environment was harsh. It's also interesting to note, because identity was such a complex theme for her, that while she grew up believing she had significant Native American ancestry,
Right.
DNA testing later confirmed her heritage was predominantly African American. So she was navigating this complex identity from birth in a world that was already so racially stratified.
But the biggest trauma of this early period wasn't the hard labor. It was the instability at home, this feeling of being fundamentally unwanted.
Her home life just shattered. Her mother, Zelma, she left the family when Anna Mae was only 11.
And the sources are very clear about why. Zelma was fleeing an abusive relationship with Floyd.
And that abandonment by her mother, it was just psychologically shattering for a young girl. It created this core wound of rejection that would, manifest later in her life.
And the instability just continued. 2 years after her mother left, her father also left the family, remarried, and moved to Detroit.
She later recalled that her mother never really wanted another child, and that she always felt like a burden. I mean, that's the root of the trauma that tragically underpinned her future, her drive, and eventually her attraction to these really volatile, controlling relationships.
So she and her sisters, they were sort of shuffled around, eventually landing with their paternal grandparents, Alex and Roxana Bullock.
Who were very strict, very religious. They were prominent figures in their community, a deacon and a deaconess at the Spring Hill Baptist Church.
A rigid environment.
Very rigid. But it gave her two critical things. One was a grounding in faith, and the other, crucially, was musical exposure. She sang in the church choir.
But even then, the performer was already trying to get out. You can see that instinct in her childhood habit of singing and acting in the streets for spare change.
Right. Not for food, specifically to go to the movies, to escape into those big, dramatic stories that offered a world so far beyond Nutbush.
So we fast forward a few years. As a teenager, she's working as a domestic helper. And then at 16, her grandmother dies, and she makes the big move to St. Louis to live with her mother.
And that move from the rural South to a bustling city is this massive cultural shift. It shows her determination, her hustle. She gets a steady job as a nurse's aide at Barnes Jewish Hospital. She's trying to build a stable, working-class life, a safe life.
But life rarely grants safety that easily. She has her first major heartache with a popular boy named Harry Taylor, dated for a year, then found out he'd married someone else who was expecting his child.
And then, almost immediately after, she meets Raymond Hill, a saxophonist for a band called the Kings of Rhythm. She becomes pregnant, gives birth to her first son, Raymond Craig Hill, in August of 1958. But then Hill breaks his ankle in a fight and leaves the band, and he's gone.
So there she is, still a young woman, working a day job, and now a single mother.
And that context is so crucial for you, the listener, to understand. Anna Mae Bullock was already fighting for survival, working and raising a child long before she ever stepped on a stage as a professional singer.
So the stage is set in St. Louis. She's a single parent. She's struggling financially, but she's drawn to the city's nightclub scene. She starts going to a place called Club Manhattan in East St. Louis.
And that's where she sees him, Ike Turner and the Kings of Rhythm. She describes watching Ike play and feeling this powerful, almost hypnotic attraction. She said she almost went into a trance.
He was magnetic, a controlling force, a band leader who just commanded the room.
And she, carrying all that unresolved trauma of rejection, of being controlled by her father, she was just inexorably drawn right into his orbit.
She kept asking to sing, right, but Ike just kept brushing her off.
Yeah, he assumed she was just another hopeful groupie. But then, in 1956, during an intermission, she showed that powerful initiative that would define her entire career.
She grabs the mic.
Literally grabs the microphone from the drummer and just starts belting out the B.B. King ballad, "You Know I Love You."
And Ike's reaction.
He was stunned. Not just impressed, stunned by that sound, that sheer untamed power. He hired her immediately as a featured vocalist, and importantly, he took on the role of her musical mentor. He was the one who taught her, quote, the finer points of vocal control and performance.
So he turned that raw talent into a disciplined, explosive instrument.
Exactly.
Her first recording, Box Stop, in 1958, she was just credited as Little Ann. But the huge shift, the moment Tina Turner is really born, happens around 1960.
With a song called A Fool in Love, and it's really a story of accidental stardom. Ike had written it for a male singer, Art Lassiter, who, thankfully for music history, didn't show up to the recording session.
So Anna Mae stepped in to sing the lead vocals just as a demo.
It's filling in. And that demo lands on the desk of Juggy Murray, the head of Sue Records. And his reaction to her voice is just... It's key to understanding her primal appeal.
What did he say?
He said she sounded like screaming dirt. It was a funky sound.
Screaming dirt. Wow, that's a quote.
Isn't it? It's so beautifully descriptive. It captures that raw, untamed, deeply soulful, almost vulgar energy that was just missing from mainstream music at the time. Murray knew immediately he had a star.
So he insists Ike make her the front woman.
And Ike, seeing the huge financial opportunity, renames her Tina, inspired by Sheena, Queen of the Jungle.
But here's the detail that is absolutely crucial to her entire life story. The moment the financial exploitation and psychological control really begins.
This is it.
Because Ike immediately and legally trademarked the name Tina Turner.
It's not just controlling, it's a deeply cynical piece of entrepreneurial genius. By trademarking the name, Ike guaranteed that if Anna Mae ever left him, which his other singers often did,
he wouldn't lose the asset. He could literally just hire another woman and call her Tina Turner. The name, the brand, was legally his. It established in black and white that she was his professional property right from the very start.
That's the very first chain she had to break.
Absolute.
Incredible. And despite that deep structural control, the music they made was transcendent. A Fool in Love from 1960 was a huge hit.
Number 2 on the R&B chart, and it crossed over to number 27 on the pop charts, which was rare. Kurt Loder famously called it the blackest record to ever creep into the white pop charts since Ray Charles's What I Say,
And that success immediately led to the Ike and Tina Turner Review.
which was an organizational powerhouse. It had the Kings of Rhythm, the legendary girl group, the Ikettes, and they built their reputation by relentlessly touring the Chitlin circuit.
And for our listeners, that was not a glamorous tour. It was a rigorous, often segregated network of venues that was the entire professional backbone of black entertainment. And Ike imposed a brutal schedule. I mean, the sources mention performance stretches of nearly 90 days straight, just driving hundreds of miles between towns. But that nonstop grind is what perfected their craft. It honed their live show into something unmatched.
They became known for their explosive live performances, right? Rivaling the James Brown Review.
He did, and because they were such a huge draw, their success actually allowed them to play before desegregated audiences in the South, which shows the power of their music to just transcend those rigid racial boundaries of the 1960s.
And the hits kept coming. It's Gonna Work Out Fine in '61 got them a Grammy nomination.
Yeah, and Poor Fool, Tra-la-la-la. But they bounced around between like 10 different record labels in the 60s. Their reputation as a live act, though, just kept growing.
The big attempt at mainstream pop dominance comes in 1966, thanks to the legendary producer Phil Spector.
Right. Spector saw them perform and was so impressed, he actually bought Tina out of her contract with Loma for $20,000.
Just so he could have complete creative control.
Total creative control. He saw the resulting single, River Deep Mountain High, as his absolute masterpiece. He paired her raw power with his signature maximalist wall of sound.
And that wall of sound is just this dense, overwhelming sonic presence. Her voice had to be powerful enough to cut through all of it.
It was. But here's that duality again that defines her whole career. The song was a colossal flop in the U.S., peaked at number 88.
But overseas.
An international smash, number 3 in the U.K., number 1 in Spain. And that U.S. failure, it's been debated for decades. Was America not ready for a black woman singing that kind of aggressive operatic rock?
Or was it Spector's production? Or just pure racial bias?
Who knows? But whatever the reason, that international success established this deep European appreciation for her talent that laid the groundwork for everything that came later.
Culturally, though, she was breaking ground. November 1967, Tina Turner becomes the first female artist and the first black artist on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine.
Which is just a foundational, barrier-breaking moment in rock history. Is huge. And then rock royalty embraced them. The Rolling Stones had them open their tours in the UK and the US.
That raised their profile immensely. By 1970, with albums like Come Together, they were fully incorporating rock tunes into their set. Honky Tonk Women, Get Back!
They were officially crossing over from an R&B review to rock legends.
And the culmination of that was their cover of Creedence Clearwater Revival's Proud Mary in 1971.
Their biggest hit, a million seller, hit number 4 on the Hot 100 and won the Grammy for Best R&B Performance. They were professionally unstoppable.
And what's so fascinating is how Tina completely redefined that song. Her arrangement starts slow, it's conversational, and then it just erupts into that signature high-energy rock breakdown.
It encapsulated their entire live experience in one track.
And we have to mention her own songwriting. She wrote the 1973 international hit Nutbush City Limits,
a direct callback to her rural roots. And that song was huge. Number 1 in Austria, number 4 in the UK. The sales were so extraordinary they earned the very first Golden European Record Award for selling over 1 million copies in Europe.
It's just so resonant that the song about the poverty of Anna Mae Bullock is what cemented the global financial power of Tina Turner.
Exactly, and her visibility just kept soaring. She's in the rock opera Tommy in '75, playing the Acid Queen. Her performance was critically acclaimed.
So the global stage was set for superstardom, but behind the scenes, the marriage was just collapsing spectacularly.
The professional machine was running parallel to a catastrophic personal life. Ike's cocaine addiction became deeply entrenched, and it just worsened the existing pattern of domestic violence and infidelity, which she later detailed in her autobiography, I, Tina.
And it all reached this dramatic, desperate breaking point on July 1st, 1976. After a brutal physical fight in the car on the way to a gig in Dallas, Tina ran.
She literally fled across a freeway. I mean, can you imagine the risk, the sheer terror she must have felt to make that break so violently? She had nothing.
36 cents?
36 cents in cash and a mobile credit card. She had left the controlling husband, the career, the money. She left everything. and took only her name and her will to survive.
That's the definition of a desperate escape.
It is. She filed for divorce later that month. And when you look at the settlement terms, they are an incredible testament to her priorities.
Right, because Ike was seeking a massive financial settlement. But Tina waived all of it. No alimony, no child support, except for their sons.
In exchange for her freedom, she took on crippling debt. She took responsibility for an IRS tax land and for missed tour dates.
And the single asset she insisted on keeping.
The stage name, Tina Turner. The very brand Ike had trademarked to control her.
She chose the brand over financial stability, over immediate comfort.
And that decision forced her to play small cabaret clubs and rely on food stamps for almost 2 years just to pay off those debts. The distance between the queen of rock and roll and her lived reality at that time was immense. But she bet everything on that name.
And that bet is what fueled the greatest comeback in rock history.
She won her freedom, but yeah, it came with a price tag of absolute financial ruin. Those early solo years from 76 to 83 are just a monumental grind.
She was trying to redefine herself when the industry pretty much saw her as yesterday's news.
The struggle was so intense. At first, she was earning money from any TV appearance she could get. You know, the Hollywood Squares, the Brady Bunch hours.
Just to pay the bills.
Exactly. Performing to pay off debts, headlining cabaret shows in Vegas, often in these elaborate Bob Mackie costumes.
But musically, nothing was working. Her first solo albums, Rough and Love Explosion, they failed completely. United Artists dropped her.
For years, she was harshly seen by the mainstream as just a nostalgia act.
The pivotal moment comes in 1979. An Australian manager, Roger Davies, sees her perform at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco.
And Davies, crucially, he saw past the cabaret setting. He recognized the raw power she still had. He agreed to manage her, and he became the shrewd architect of her second act.
So Davies focused on strategic exposure. He got her that high-profile opening slot on the Rolling Stones' 1981 American Tool.
And her '82 cover of Ball of Confusion, produced by a British team, became a massive European dance hit.
Which led to her becoming one of the very first Black American artists to have a music video on the brand new and increasingly crucial MTV.
That was vital. It exposed her powerful image, the hair, the legs, the fashion, to a whole new, young, international audience. It set the table.
So here's where the legend really starts to catch fire. 1983, she signs with Capitol Records. They give her a small budget, and she puts out a cover single.
Al Green's Let's Stay Together.
And the success was just an absolute surprise. Hit number 6 in the UK, and critically, number 1 on the US Hot Dance Club Songs chart.
That single success convinced Capitol to greenlight a full album.
That album was Private Dancer, and the sources say it was recorded in an astonishingly quick 2 weeks.
Just pieced together with different producers in London, it was risky, but the album was a masterpiece that just perfectly captured the 80s sound with her blues and rock grit.
Released in 1984, it soared to number 3 on the Billboard 200, sold over 10 million copies worldwide.
It was the ultimate vindication. And its second single defined the entire era. What's Love Got to Do with It? In September 1984, at the age of 44, it became her first and only #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. You have to step back and just appreciate the magnitude of that. A woman achieving the pinnacle of American solo success decades into her career after leaving an abusive marriage that almost destroyed her.
The victory was cemented at the Grammy Awards. She didn't just win, she swept 3 major awards, including Record of the Year.
This was more than a comeback. It was a total professional and cultural reset.
And beyond the charts, her image became a global force. David Bowie collaborated with her, Karl Lagerfeld was obsessed with her, putting models in those iconic Tina Turner wigs.
Her whole visual presentation, the short skirts, the famous legs, the towering hair, it was all about unapologetic strength and glamour.
Which vaulted her straight into Hollywood. In 1985, she starred opposite Mel Gibson in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome,
playing the glamorous, menacing villain, Anti-Entity. And she got really positive reviews for her acting.
The film was a huge success. And her 2 soundtrack songs, We Don't Need Another Hero and One of Living, were massive hits. The latter won her a Grammy for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance.
And at that point, she'd done it. She had achieved the unprecedented trio of Grammys across R&B, pop, and rock.
And who can forget that Live Aid performance in July '85 with Mick Jagger?
The sheer chaotic energy of that moment, with Jagger ripping off her skirt, it captivated the whole world. It was pure, unscripted rock theater.
So by 1986, she releases Break Every Rule, #1 in 4 countries. The tour for that album became the highest grossing tour by a female artist of the 1980s. She truly broke global records on that tour. When she played in Rio de Janeiro in January 1988, she set a Guinness World Record for the largest paying audience for a solo artist. 180,000 people. Just think about the scale of that. The ability to command an audience that size in a single night.
Her global dominance just continued. The 1989 album Foreign Affair, #1 in 8 countries, had the massive international hit, The Best.
And this reinforced her own observation that her fame was perhaps even greater overseas than it was in America.
Oh, absolutely. The European tour for that album drew nearly 4 million people. It broke the touring record previously held by the Rolling Stones. She was now competing with and beating the biggest rock acts in history.
The accolades just kept piling up. In 1991, she and Ike were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a duo.
But Tina, citing emotional reasons, specifically chose not to attend the ceremony. Ike was incarcerated at the time.
Her absence was a deliberate, profound statement. She acknowledged the history, but she refused to participate in celebrating the relationship that almost ended her.
And that desire to control her narrative became even stronger with the release of the film What's Love Got to Do with It in 1993.
That film was a huge success. Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne both got Oscar nominations, and it allowed her to really finalize the narrative arc of her life for a global audience.
Right. And she contributed to the soundtrack, re-recording her classic hits and releasing the new song I Don't Want to Fight, which is a top 10 hit. It offered a kind of musical conclusion to that whole era.
And she kept dominating the late 90s. The iconic Bond theme Goldeneye in 95. Her Wildest Dreams tour was the first tour by a woman to earn $100 million.
Her final full album, 24/7, came out in 1999. The tour for that in 2000 was the highest grossing tour of that year.
And at the end of that tour, in Zurich, she announced her retirement from performing.
She did have a brief comeback, performing with Beyoncé at the 2008 Grammys and doing the 50th anniversary tour, which was one of the best-selling tours in history. But she officially retired from performing in 2009. And just to prove her staggering chart longevity, even in retirement, in 2020, she collaborated on a remix of What's Love Got to Do with It?
With a Kygo.
Right. And she became the first artist ever to score a top 40 hit in 7 consecutive decades in the UK.
7 decades, from the 1960s to the 2020s. It's an unparalleled career span. And fittingly, she got her solo induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021, accepting via satellite from her home in Switzerland.
Finalizing that narrative shift from duo member to undisputed self-possessed solo legend.
The final chapter of her life, starting in the 90s, it's really defined by this absolute search for peace and privacy, which led her to Küsnacht, Switzerland, far away from the pressures and the spotlight of her career's roots. Yeah, she started living at Chateau Algonquin on the shore of Lake Zurich back in 1994. And while she had properties all over, Switzerland offered her something she'd never really had in the U.S. discretion, privacy, and a deep sense of security. The ultimate commitment came in 2013. She took a mandatory citizenship test in German about Swiss history and was granted Swiss citizenship.
And she didn't stop there. She formally renounced her U.S. citizenship later that year, which is just a deeply significant decision for an American icon.
Her stated reason was crucial. She said she no longer had any strong connections to the United States and had no plans to live there. It was a decisive, active break from the country where she was born and where she'd endured so much trauma.
This chosen home also brought her enduring romantic happiness. In July 2013, after 27 years together, she married the German music executive Erwin Bach.
Their relationship really represented the stability and deep emotional support that she had always craved.
Tragically, though, this period of peace was just ravaged by intense health battles, which she detailed so unflinchingly in her 2018 memoir, My Love Story.
She revealed she suffered from high blood pressure, mostly untreated since 1978, which had severely damaged her kidneys.
And the trials just came one after another. 3 weeks after her wedding in 2013, she had a stroke and had to learn how to walk all over again. In 2016, she was diagnosed with intestinal cancer.
And she revealed this terrifying near-fatal event with her kidneys. She tried homeopathic remedies, which tragically worsened her condition to the point of catastrophic failure.
Her prognosis was so poor, she actually joined Exit International, an assisted suicide organization that's legal in Switzerland. She was preparing for the end.
And here's the most profound testament to the love of Erwin Bach. When her chances of getting a kidney transplant were critically low, he volunteered without hesitation to donate one of his own.
It's the ultimate gesture of selfless devotion, isn't it? A woman who was treated as property and abused was saved by the man who loved her unconditionally, sacrificing a part of himself to save her.
She had the life-saving transplant surgery in April 2017.
Unfortunately, even as her own health stabilized, the personal tragedies just kept coming. She faced the heartbreaking loss of her two biological sons in quick succession.
Her eldest son, Craig, died by apparent suicide in 2018. Then her son Ronnie died from complications of colon cancer in 2022.
And her adopted son, Ike Jr., died from kidney failure just in 2023. I mean, that string of profound losses in her final years really highlights that the narrative of the survivor often means just enduring continued pain.
But central to her resilience through all of these trials was her deep spiritual practice. Though she was raised Baptist, she often called herself a Buddhist Baptist.
Right, though later she just said, I consider myself a Buddhist. She credited Nichiren Buddhism, which she was introduced to back in 1973 while she was still with Ike, with helping her through the hardest times.
And the practice itself, the chanting of Nami Shrenkaj, it was therapeutic for her. She famously likened the chanting to singing.
And she sometimes practiced for up to 4 hours a day during her deepest struggles. She believed the practice helped her realize her own internal strength, giving her the courage to finally break free from Ike.
This commitment to spiritual upliftment, it manifested in her later projects. In 2009, she co-founded the Beyond Foundation and released several albums of spiritual and uplifting music.
It was a final artistic offering that was focused entirely on peace and internal strength, not performance spectacle.
Her final years saw massive tributes. She passed away on May 24, 2023, in Küsnacht, Switzerland at age 83, and the tributes were just global.
From Beyoncé, Oprah, Mick Jagger, President Biden, and that profoundly unique gesture by King Charles III, having the best perform during the changing of the guard, it just underscores that she had transcended pop stardom. She was a global figurehead for resilience.
Her legacy is absolutely secure. Rolling Stone ranked her among the greatest artists and singers of all time. She still holds the shared record for most awards for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance.
And 3 of her most iconic recordings, River Deep, Proud Mary, and her ultimate victory track, What's Love Got to Do With It, are all preserved in the Grammy Hall of Fame.
Beyond the charts, her cultural impact is indelible. The Kennedy Center Honors in 2005, Tennessee named a state route the Tina Turner Highway.
And in a fitting modern tribute, Mattel released a Barbie doll in her likeness in 2022. She truly became an immortal symbol of power.
So what stands out when we look back across all these decades of sources is that unbelievable journey from being a piece of intellectual property,
Literally trademarked so she could be replaced,
to becoming this self-owned, self-directed global phenomenon.
She was a cultural force who just redefined what was possible for a woman, especially a black woman, in rock and roll, all while carrying the mantle of the ultimate survivor. And her fame, particularly in Europe, was just staggering.
And that narrative of ultimate choice, it's all crystallized in her final decision. After achieving the absolute pinnacle of fame, she actively and willingly renounced her U.S. citizenship to fully embrace Swiss life,
Stating she had no strong connections left to the U.S.
So what does it all mean? She was the queen of rock and roll, born in the raw country soil of Nutbush, Tennessee. Yet she found her truest peace not under the American spotlight that both created and traumatized her, but in the quiet diplomacy and protection of Switzerland. So the provocative thought we want to leave you with builds on that final act of liberation. What does it truly take for a person, defined by a lifetime of struggle and the painful geography of their origins, not just to survive that history, but to actively choose where they belong? To decide that peace and self-authorship are worth more than the identity tied to their traumatic roots. She chose her final home, not by birthright, but by choice. That is the ultimate act of liberation.
Think about the power in choosing your own safe harbor.
Until the next time we do a deep dive, thanks for listening.